Hey there, friends. Welcome back to another Legally Armed America video. I'm, of course, Paul Glasgow here, the one and only truth pimp. Guys, I want to talk a little bit today about the NPR revocation of funds, so to speak, from the federal government to NPR. And this is something that's very important to me because NPR has never been a fan of the Constitution, let alone the Second Amendment. They've been very anti-Second Amendment. Now it seems that they're invoking the First Amendment of the Constitution in order to argue that they should still receive funding from the federal government, even though that doesn't exist in the First Amendment or anywhere else in the Constitution. I just want to point out the irony and the, let's just call it hypocrisy, of these people disliking any of the amendments, but certainly taking advantage of them when it benefits them. Here's a really quick clip that I want to show you guys with Mar, who is the CEO of NPR, mocking kinda the First Amendment because she ain't real happy with that.
Number one challenge here that we see and is, of course, the First Amendment in the United States is a fairly robust protection of rights.
And again, they've never been a fan of the Second Amendment. They've always mocked the Second Amendment. Now, I haven't seen them sing the praises of the Second Amendment either, but I imagine if people started throwing bricks through their windows, they would all of a sudden be real staunch Second Amendment supporters, right? Members of Congress aren't having it. And I like the way members of Congress right now are seeing the fact that this is BS, and they're going after this funding of an organization that takes your dollars and my dollars, and let's face it, more of us. I'm talking about people who are center to right, or the ones who work and generate the tax revenue that goes to these people, and then they go and brainwash the people on the left who aren't contributing to that.
Catherine Mar today is the last dying whimper of an antiquated organization that's about to have their corporate welfare pulled away from them. The American people are sick of their tax dollars funding radical left, wildly Marxist news outlets who hate the very things that this country was built on. During that hearing, I had the chance to ask her, do you believe that, for instance, America is addicted to white supremacy? She said, well, you know, I didn't really say that. Yes, you did actually say that. These people are insane, and we shouldn't be giving them our tax dollars. We're finally going to stop that. I'm so glad that we have a president who is taking this seriously. This is something that Republicans have been talking about for decades, and President Trump is finally doing it. And I can tell you, we're going to follow it up with Congress with rescission bills that permanently pull this money back.
And of course, here's our friend Mike Cloud from Congress, a good friend of the show, very strong Second Amendment supporter. I love his calmness, but his delivery is excellent.
Said we should not use the terms boy or girl, has called our president a deranged racist sociopath, and said that our reverence for the truth has become a distraction that is preventing us from finding consensus and getting important things done. And
in fact, I think our reverence for the truth might have become a bit of a distraction that is preventing us from finding consensus and getting important things done.
One could look at that and think that maybe, in your view, promoting groupthink is more important than finding the truth. I thought we liked diversity of ideas, especially, and that as an online encyclopedia that you used to manage, activism was more important than accuracy.
Talk about truth was really referencing the way that people use truth to refer to belief as opposed to facts. And my encouragement was that we focus on facts. With regards to the First Amendment.
That's not what your comment said. Your comment said that truth was getting in the way of getting things done and that you were prioritizing what you wanted to get done over truth.
The way he calmly corrected her, that's the way it ought to be done. I couldn't do that. Like, Mike does really good at that. He's very good at remaining calm and trying to deliver his message and correcting you if he has to, no matter how much you might dislike it. I can't do that. I get more emotional. I raise my voice. I would not be a good politician because I would say that's bullcrap. You're lying to me. This is what you really said. And Cloud handles it a whole lot differently, so kudos to him for being able to handle it like that. Now here's Senator Ted Cruz. This video is slightly longer, but Cruz is really good, and he points out some excellent points as to why money that comes from everybody shouldn't go to just benefit people on their left.
Would note the ranking member had some comments on the defunding of NPR, and as some might say, there is the rest of the story. The Communications Act requires public media entities like NPR to strictly adhere to, quote, objectivity and balance in all programs or series of programs on a controversial nature. Unfortunately, NPR does not. Last Congress, I put out a detailed report how NPR took millions in earmarked donations from left-wing mega donors for very specific coverage. After receiving those donations, NPR churned out content precisely mirroring its donors' agendas. Likewise, the congressionally chartered independent television service paid for documentaries like, quote, racist trees to appear on PBS. NPR CEO Catherine Marr continues to deny that NPR has a story selection problem, even when senior editors are resigning because the bias is so overwhelming. Yet NPR continues to have a dedicated news desk for climate and for race, both of which are propped up by liberal mega donors. This is the same woman who in January 2020, months before the death of George Floyd, tweeted, quote, yes, the North, yes, all of us, yes, America, yes, our original collective sin and unpaid debt, yes, reparations, yes, on this day. I think it's more than time for some accountability.
Again, excellent points. It's hard to argue with the fact that we're taking dollars equally from everybody, which again, it's not equally. It's coming mostly from the working class, which in most cases, working class people tend to be more right-leaning just because they have more conservative views. Those on the left, I think 47% of the country, last I checked, was taking some kind of a government handout. So there's a lot of people out there who are not generating revenue, although they think they're paying taxes because they pay some sales taxes. They don't pay income taxes because they're sitting on their butt as able-bodied people getting free cheese from the federal government, and they think that means they're paying into it. They're not paying into it. They're not. They're paying zero into it, and they're getting something. So really, they're in arrears. They're in the negatives for that. So they're not paying for NPR, but they sit at home and they use NPR. In other words, they consume the stuff from NPR. Now, there's some disputes out there as far as how much money is going to NPR. In fact, I've seen NPR actually say, oh, we only get 1% of our revenue from the federal government. Well, a couple things on that. First of all, it's a lie. You get more than 1%. Secondly, if you don't need the 1%, then why are you suing the federal government for your 1%? Just give a middle finger to the federal government and do all your policies from center to left, because we know that's what you want to do. None of you people, I mean, it's obvious from your CEO, none of you people want to put any information out there regarding fairness. You want to be left-leaning. So just tell the government, keep your 1%. Don't worry about us. We got this. But it's because you're lying, because a minimum of 13% actually comes from the federal government. That's right. So if you look down here where it says includes the 1% share of federal funding from CBP and federal agencies and departments, that 1% is what they're talking about, because that's a direct payment from the federal government to NPR itself. Now, CPB, that's the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. That is an organization that the government pays a lot of money to. This is a check straight from the federal government to CPB. And they, in turn, pay radio stations who can use that federal funding to buy NPR's programming. So it's kind of a money laundering scheme, but it's a legal one. So when NPR says they get 1% of their funding from the federal government, remember, that's a check they get from the federal government that only totals 1%. But it's at least as high as 13% when you add in all those other stations who are buying the the PBS broadcasting data, whether it's radio stations, website stuff. That's going to include federal funds that they're using to purchase that PBS or NPR, I should say, programming. Now, I think it would be irresponsible on my part to not acknowledge the fact that, we've got some 501(c)(3)s, some NGOs, some nonprofits out here who are also getting federal grant money that this is going to apply to also, that will not be able to use that federal grant money now to go to NPR. So that's important to understand also. I think that's the main thing they're looking at. I don't even know that the 13% figure that we have right here is as big a deal as all those other nonprofits who are paying them money to either carry their stuff or to run their type of programming, or, let's face it, to influence the left-leaning nature of NPR. I think that's more what they're looking for, because if they do keep digging, like Doge has been digging and other people have, into USAID and other different types of NGOs and 501(c)(3)s, I think they're going to find people who are writing checks or giving grant money back to NPR that originated from the federal government. So what Trump is trying to do to NPR, that would also apply to all that grant money, because it's saying that you can't use any government funding to go to NPR at all. So even though indirectly it still does wind up at NPR, that originates from the federal government. So it has the potential to impact far more than just this 13% that you see right here. Now, just a quick reminder as we roll through this video, it's important that keep reminding you who's leading NPR. One glance at this picture right here tells you everything you need to know about the political leanings and the mindset at the head of NPR. Just wanted you to know that real quick as we roll through this video. Now, this is a statement that NPR put out regarding Trump withholding funds to NPR. NPR will never agree to this infringement of our constitutional rights, like they have a say in it, or the constitutional rights of our member stations. And NPR will not compromise our commitment to an independent free press and journalistic integrity. That was again from Catherine Marr, the NPR CEO. Can we break this down for a second? NPR will never agree to this infringement. Again, it's not yours to agree on. It's been imposed on you. But she states, of our constitutional rights. First of all, I did look again out of fairness, and there is nothing in there that says that we have to pay NPR money. Now, granted, that Corporation of Public Broadcasting, that's an organization that Congress agreed to. This is all congressional, so it's legal to do this. And this might be what she's thinking of from a constitutional standpoint, because if Congress does implement a law, then constitutionally we're supposed to respect that. That might be where she's going off on this weird constitutional right tangent. But the CPB, Corporation for Public Broadcasting, was put together, I believe, in the late 60s or early 70s. And it's an organization that they decided that they would disseminate public broadcasting type stuff. It started originally from a magazine, believe it or not. And they would disseminate this information to the general public. Now, at the time, it was pretty middle of the road at the time. And I feel like it was something that the government was just doing to get information out there regarding whatever the topic was. Well, like anything else, over time, it got infiltrated with the bottom-feeding people who would run it, and they overwhelmed it. Actually, at one point, they couldn't even keep the lights on, so there was like a $7 million loan that had to be given to them. Typical government organization or government-funded organization. They pay all the money in salaries, and they piss everything else away. But this organization would pay NPR. Now, what they would do is the government would still write a check to NPR, but they would write some of it to the CBP or CPB. So that's where you got that 13% from earlier. That's why she mentions in here the constitutional rights of our member stations, because those member stations are the ones that the CPB is paying money to, and they're saying they would cut that off and not allow them to be able to purchase that product from NPR regarding broadcasting or any of their content. But I had to laugh with the will not compromise our commitment to an independent free press. It's not very independent whenever you rely on the government funding so strongly that you want to sue them so they stop taking that money away. That sounds kind of dependent to me. And it's not a free press because we're paying for it. So it's not free to us. Just because it says public broadcasting doesn't mean it's free. Anytime you see the word public in anything, that means the taxpayers are paying for it. So it is absolutely not free. It has the appeal of being free to those who don't work and generate revenue or any tax revenue for the federal government. But to the rest of us, it's certainly not free. It's got a price tag associated with it. But the journalistic integrity, guys, that is a laughing matter. And this is not my opinion. You want to see some proof of how left-leaning these wackos are? Here's a recent post regarding South Africa's president visiting the White House whenever Trump decided to show him that they were killing off white farmers. NPR decided to create this headline on their own that states Trump ambushes South Africa's president with false claims of white genocide. First of all, two things are wrong. He did not ambush him. He simply shared information with him because he knew the guy was lying about it. Call that an ambush, you call it what you want. To me, that's delivering truth to somebody who is sitting in your office asking you for free money while he's killing off white people in his country. To me, that was a fair thing to do. And if you want to call an ambush, I don't care what you call it. It was very necessary. But false claims of white genocide, it's absolutely happening. Now, it depends on who you take it from. If you ask NPR, it's not happening. That tells you right there it is a lie because everyone else in the world knows it's actually happening. So this is a provable lie by the NPR organization. You want more? You heard what Ted Cruz mentioned earlier about suspending people who did not agree with their left-leaning bias. NPR suspended veteran editor Yuri Berliner, who called out left-wing bias. This was just last April, so this is not ancient history. If you don't agree with their left-leaning approach and you call it out, you will lose your job. Now, to me, he should be suing them for firing him for speaking the truth. And if you want more, here is a precious one that has not aged very well. NPR wrote, "Why haven't you seen any stories from NPR about the New York Post Hunter Biden story?" They answered their own question. "We don't want to waste our time on stories that are not really stories, and we don't want to waste the listeners' and readers' time on stories that are just pure distractions." How do you call something that could have changed the outcome of a presidential election not really a story or just a pure distraction? Personally, I think the Trump administration should let them sue them. You know why? Whenever there's a public disagreement like what you're seeing right now, you can hide all the dirty crap that you've been doing, right? Like if you and your wife get a divorce, well, you can hide all the stuff that happened between y'all. But if it goes to court, guess what happens then? Everything gets subpoenaed. Everything. Text messages, emails, everything. As long as there is a public disagreement between the Trump administration and NPR, none of that has to come out. I say, let it go to court. Then let the federal government's own attorneys, because remember, it's a bottomless pit of money, right? This can go both ways. While they can put people like me out of business because they have a huge amount of money, like an endless supply of money, the federal government, I say we turn that around on them. Let's use our own money, the federal government's money. I give you permission. It's my taxpayer money, to investigate and subpoena every single email and text message from NPR for the last, I don't know, let's call it 15 or 20 years. I want to see where they talked about stuff like this. I want to see where they discussed internally that the Hunter Biden laptop that had everything from discussions about, wasn't it Biden and his daughter bathing together when she was just a teenager, and then all the crack use, everything else, all the business dealings where Joe Biden was involved in these illegal dealings with China and Ukraine and everybody else? All that would have to come out because all that would be subpoenaed under this lawsuit. This could be an Exhibit A right here, where if the U.S. government is trying to say, here are our reasons for not wanting to supply money, federal money, taxpayer money, to NPR anymore. You guys actually put a story out saying that this was a non-story, and we're telling you why it was. Exhibit A, here's all your emails where you said, we ain't going to talk about this. I say let it go through. Let it go to court. Don't settle with these people. Let it go to court, subpoena everything, and you're going to see a whole lot more crap come out. In fact, you're liable to see a dotted line to people who are serving in office right now, who somehow or another benefited or were involved in how NPR was attacking people on the right.